Ladies and gentlemen, the event is about to begin. Scott, please go ahead.
And thank you very much, Jim, and hello, everyone. My name is Scott Ferguson, and welcome to today's webcast and panel discussion entitled How to Drive and Close More Leads in 2023. This event is brought to you by ThinkAdvisor and sponsored by FMG. Basic housekeeping items about the webcast console. This event is completely interactive and features many customizable functions. Every window that you currently see, from the slide window to the Q&A panel, can either be enlarged or collapsed. So if you'd like to change the look and feel of your console, please go ahead. If you have a question for one of our speakers today, please enter it into the Q&A widget on your console. That widget is accessible on the left-hand side of your screen where you see the question mark icon. We will try to answer your questions either during the event or as part of the live Q&A session at the end. We'll answer as many questions as possible, so we invite you to ask away. And if we do not get to your question, you may receive an email response after today's event. FMG also has some additional resources for our audience to download from the webcast console, as well as a copy of today's slide deck. And now for today's topic and the reason why everyone is here today: how to drive and close more leads in 2023. In today's webcast, our speakers will outline ways to improve or kickstart your lead generation efforts in 2023. They will specifically address how to, 1, attract more qualified leads, 2, create customized nurture strategies that increase conversions, and 3, apply best practices to your website, social media, and email. Leading our panel discussion today to discuss these and other topics is Susan Theater. She is the Chief Marketing and Experience Officer at FMG. And with that, Susan, I can turn the conversation over to you to start.
Great. Thank you so much. I think that's a very sufficient introduction to what we're going to talk about today. I think the only thing I'll add is when Sam and I talk to advisors, which is quite often, and we do a lot of these webinars, I would say the most common thing that we hear is, can you help me get more leads? And we wish that there was an easy button and just like push a magic button and off they would come. But it actually is, I wouldn't say it. There are lots of things, and we're going to cover them today, that will help you drive more leads. And we know this topic is top of mind. So I'm excited to be here with Sam. And we have a guest speaker that we are excited to have with us, Yelena Melamed from Catchlight. And FMG has recently done an integration with Catchlight, and we're excited to talk about that a little bit more, but I'll tease that, so you have to wait to learn more about Catchlight. But with that, I'll just turn it over to you guys to introduce yourselves a little bit.
Yes, so I was trying to put our pictures up there, as you were saying, so everybody could know who's who. But hi, everybody. I'm Samantha Russell, the Chief Evangelist at FMG, and I have to just say happy birthday to you, Susan. If you're here today, got to give Susan a quick shout out. It's her birthday, so she's spending her birthday teaching us how to generate leads, which I love.
Where I'd rather be.
And I have been working with advisors for about 8 years now on all things digital marketing, and really, really have a passion for teaching people just like you how to take the best practices that we know work and use them to propel organic growth through marketing. So we're going to dive in today. But as Susan said, we're so excited to have a new voice in the mix today, and some really interesting technology that we're going to get to show you guys that is just going to blow your mind. It blew my mind when I saw it. So without further ado, Yelena, why don't you introduce yourself and just give us a brief, quick overview about Catchlight, which we'll hear more about too.
What an awesome introduction. Pleasure to be here. Susan, happy birthday. Thank you, Sam. I am Yelena Melamed. I'm head of product at Catchlight, and we are a Boston-based fintech from Fidelity Labs that provides data-driven engagement solutions for advisors. Simply put, we provide powerful insights to help advisors grow their business. I've been partnering with wealth managers for about 23 years of my career, so really eager to be part of this conversation and hear your feedback and be able to share some of what we've got going on, including the partnership.
Awesome. So yes, so stay tuned to the end. We're going to mostly just give away all of the strategies from an educational perspective up front. But if you want to learn more about FMG's technology, Catchlight's technology. Stay till the end because we're going to show you a quick 5-minute overview of how the two can work together to really propel that. But let's just dive right in. And again, if you have questions as we're talking, put them in the Q&A box. We don't want this to just be a monologue. We want it to be a dialogue. So the first thing we want to talk, though, about is what strategies are working best to drive more leads. So that is first and foremost. And so that's really going to be the agenda for today. So we are going to talk about webinars, workshops, and events. We're going to talk about thought leadership and where you share it. We're going to talk about websites optimized for conversion, SEO, digital referrals, and then how you take information you have on leads and personalize your communication to really, really drive more of those leads and help them self-qualify. And ladies, are you seeing my slides? I just want to make sure because this is a new platform for me. Yes. Okay. Yes. Thank you. All right. So let's talk about webinars, workshops, seminars, and events. And this is a really, really interesting one because we have done our own research here at FMG that shows that, and in partnership with other companies, that has shown that a lot of advisors, the majority of advisors, are not really utilizing digital versions of these events to drive traffic. And we know that it works. The firms we partner with are seeing great results, and we do it all the time ourselves because it works. So, Yelena, I think I'm going to have you first tell us a little bit about this slide and some research that you brought here today to talk about this.
Absolutely. So we spent some time digging in with advisors in a study from December of 22. Hard to think that it's already 23, but we really dug into content marketing and kind of looking at channels, but content marketing specifically was an opportunity. Found that many advisors are spending a lot of time on their website with a lot of these bar charted categories here to engage with prospects. But in contrast, content marketing specifically, things like emails, newsletters, blogs, video are really not as utilized. So advisors that are looking to stand apart have an opportunity to really lean in on that channel is what we're finding.
Great. And that really goes right along with the research that we found. So we did a study and found that webinars were only utilized by 23% of advisory firms, which is astounding to me because you can create this content once and repurpose it over and over again. I have worked personally with so many firms that have took the seminars, the in-person events they were doing previously and created a digital version of them. And again, you can, do it once and then have them on demand so people can rewatch them. You can gate them to collect leads that way. It's a really, really great strategy. So you might be wondering, okay, well then what do I talk about on these events? And so here are just some ideas for you. And Susan, I don't know if you have anything you want to add in on this, but there are, so many different ways we've seen firms go about it. The number one thing I think works really well is to be really timely. So answering things that people are already talking about, because we know that that is something they're interested in. And then also to bring on experts from other companies, people you partner with, to expand your reach, right? Because you're going to get to tap into their audience and their list that they can invite as well as your own.
Yeah, I love that part. And to not be boxed into thinking you have to talk about something financial, because that is actually not the topic on all of our minds, really. So the most successful webinars I've seen advisors do combine multiple different professions. So it could be on wellness and bring in a nutritionist, a estate planner, mental health, whatever it might be, and have a panel discussion that is broader than just the financial aspects of it. And it's also so much nicer to have other people to talk to on a webinar, so you aren't the only one speaking, and it makes it easier. And it also definitely helps from a lead gen perspective because you get all of them promoting it to their list. So I think just not to think it's a lot of it. It doesn't have to be a ton of work. You don't have to have a massive slide deck. You can just get people that that are interesting and come up with a topic, and you're ready to go.
Absolutely. So I just wanted to show a great example of what that could look like. This is from a firm Sequoia Financial. I put a link to their website if you want to go check it out. They actually take all their webinars and put them on their website as a resource for people to go back and rewatch. Again, from a thought leadership lead gen perspective, if this webinar they did was on the proposed tax law changes that Biden had for the Build Back Better plan a year or two ago. And at the time, everybody wanted to know, well, what is this going to mean for my tax situation, right? So there was a lot of Googling happening around these key terms. They took their webinar that they recorded. It was a great lead gen opportunity. But then when they put it on their website, they added a transcript of the session. So all those keywords that were in what they talked about are now a way for people to find them, right, online through just search as well. So that is a really great strategy. And what does that actually look like? You can have a page that's just your latest webinars. This is a client of ours, JCL Financial Group. And so you can see some of the topics they have recent webinars on, getting the most out of Social Security. Always a popular topic, Social Security for people right before they retire. Taxes in retirement is always a popular one as well. Oh, Susan, I think you might be muted.
I am. I was just going to say tax time. It's super timely. You could take that as if you do one thing when you leave this webinar, it might be just think about whether you can reach out to any of your CPA partners and potentially put on a webinar that talks about the most recent tax law changes or things to make sure you focus on to maximize your deductions or something. Could be a great time to do something either in early February or late February.
Such a good point. So I saw some people asking about what topics should we talk about. So here's a slide with some ideas for you. So any kind of pending legislation is always a popular one, especially for people where it's going to impact their tax situation. Quarterly market recaps, what has happened, what do we think might happen? Those, I will say, if you're going to promote them, don't just say quarterly market recap as your title. You want to get more specific with maybe like either I don't want to say predictions, but what could be on the horizon. Talk about specific things that have happened, whether you say tech layoffs or this or that, but just quarterly market recap can be a little bland. So you want to give them a little bit more of a taste of what could be in it. But as Susan mentioned, evergreen topics, things like taxes, Social Security, Medicare, they're always popular. But again, the more specific you can be to your niche audience and who you particularly work with, the better attendance you will have and the more likely your audience is to forward that on to their friends or family or coworkers and invite them to join as well. And then I thought this slide was just really helpful for all of you. I know when I first started doing events, this was really helpful for me to remember. One of the biggest mistakes that we find with people with webinars is that they only send one, maybe two invitations out to the list. And as you can see from this chart, for the optimal performance, you actually want to send 3 emails inviting people to your event. And you really don't want to start promoting it like a month ahead of time. A lot of people think, I need all this build up to invite people. Susan, what do we find? Usually it's in the last week or so, right? That we get almost all the registration.
We've been having the most success just sending it out maybe a week, 10 days before the first one. And then you can see, dripping up until, and then even right before the event, a last minute reminder. And then of course, coupling this with social posts is, also helps get sort of just keeping top of mind. And when you're having an in-person event, you got to back out the 6 weeks, but you can throw these together pretty quickly, but you do have to make sure that you're dripping on the prospects, not assuming that one email will do it. Because I think that is the biggest thing I hear is, great, I know I should have webinars, but when I've done it, I haven't gotten anybody to attend.
Yes. And a lot of people will send out their invitations and make them very formal and buttoned up. One of the strategies we find works best to convert people to sign up is make the last minute one a funny meme or a GIF saying something like time is running out, or we found funny clips of like people from the office, just things that are relatable. Those always drive the most registrants, something that is cultural, pop culture, something that will make you laugh. So don't be afraid to, kind of play on that in your invitations.
Yeah.
And if you're looking for help with these kinds of events, if you're already an FMG customer of ours, you can go into the FMG dashboard and you will find that we create full presentations for you. Everything from the full slide deck with all the notes, the script, to the landing page to invite people. If you're not an FMG client already and you want to check it out, we'd love to talk with you about it. But this is so valuable for all of you who want to do more of this, but it maybe feels daunting to put the slides together, create the talking points. So that's already in your dashboard. And I think this is incredibly valuable because you can take it and use it however you want. You know, you can stick to what we've given you, you can edit it, make it your own. But having these recaps of, you know, the last 6 months or the year-end market recap is incredibly valuable, and it's already professionally designed for you.
I'll add, Sam, that I think what's great is not only having kind of support and going into a conversation and having this pre-made for you, but I think as a follow-up post-webinar is another opportunity to engage. Right, those are the materials in your example with Sequoia, whether you also add a transcript. It's another way to also engage the audience that attended. And maybe even segment them a little bit based on who asked the questions, what kind of questions they asked, and maybe some other insights that you might have about who's attending. And we'll talk about some of those insights later too.
Such a good point. And somebody I saw in the questions was asking, what is an ideal length of a webinar? Between 30 and 60 minutes is really ideal. We shoot for 45 minutes a lot, but we tend to pack it in with so much information. It ends up being a full hour. I personally, my opinion, I'm, not the be all end all, but I think anything over an hour, you really start to lose people. So 30 to 60 minutes is the sweet spot in terms of length. But then again, if you have less to say, if you only have 20 minutes, still put it on, right? If it's 20 minutes packed with value, that's great. Okay. So once you have these, webinars or you're doing these other events to drive traffic to your website, how do you actually convert more people on your website? Because what we have found is that there's a lot of folks who maybe are posting to social media or they've got great email campaigns running. But when people land on the website, they're getting nobody converting. Nobody's booking a meeting. And that's because their website was not designed to convert. So we're going to walk you through some of these really quickly here. So you can also take a look at your own website, do a self-audit, and think about easy, low-hanging fruit ways you can make small tweaks that make a huge difference, because it can really, really go a long way. So, again, before you send leads to your site, you want to ask yourself, does your website pass what we call the 5-second test? And so this is just a test where you're thinking about, in 5 seconds, can somebody determine who you are, what you do, and who you do it for, right? Can they identify your firm, that you are a wealth manager, a financial advisor, a financial planner, whatever you determine, as well as what services you provide and who specifically you provide them to. And this is incredibly, incredibly important. So many sites we look at do not pass the 5-second test. And in addition, a recent Bank of New York Pershing report found that over 60% of investors believe that most financial advisors make the same promises, making it hard to tell the difference between them. So consumers often are confused, of what's the difference between one firm and another. So the more specific you can be on what those services you provide are, or how you're a little different, or who's the best fit for who you work with, the more your website visitors are going to be able to self-qualify, which means you're going to get better quality leads in the first place, right? So let's take just look at a couple examples of sites that are doing this well. This is Meyer Wealth Advisors. And as you can see, they provide financial guidance for professionals who receive equity-based compensation. Super easy to understand who they are, what they do, and who they do it for. And then you can even see the second line here. This is called the sub-headline. They have some really important keywords in there. So ISOs, RSUs, NQS, Os, all of these different, jargony words, but that people are actually going to be searching for on Google. They have it listed right there. So this site absolutely passes the 5-second test. And I love this visual, ladies. I don't know if you agree with me, but when oops, I didn't have that pushed to the audience. Sorry. Did I not have the last one pushed to the audience either? Could you guys see this one? Okay. So let's keep going. So I love this visual because if you think about your own, website behavior, do you read a website like a book? You don't start in the upper left-hand side and read every line of the page, right? We scroll and we scan till something catches our eye. So in this example here on the left, if you were to read all of this, it basically says, we'll act as your firm's outsourced CFO. But look at the difference on the right, how much quicker you can get that, right? This definitely passes the 5-second test. And the reason this is so important is just that, you might have someone who's referred to your advisory firm, but they're also referred to 3 or 4 other people. And so you really want to be able to hone in on the value you provide and what you do and how you're different very quickly for those website visitors. So this is sort of a sobering statistic, but 97% of website visitors don't actually convert on your website. So when it comes to lead generation, a lot of you might have pretty good quality leads that are finding you online, being referred by a friend, but you'll never even know if they land on your website and leave because they feel like, oh, this wasn't what I was looking for, because you don't have any way to determine that, right? So what we really want to do is have 2 calls to action. And if you take nothing away from this presentation other than this is something that all of you can go back to your office and do today. Look at your own website and see, do I have 2 calls to action? Do I have a primary? So these are the people that are ready to get started and book a meeting with you. So schedule a call, maybe a calendar link, right? Where they can just schedule a time on your calendar right away. That usually most people have something like that, but what they're missing is a secondary call to action. And this is for people who are not yet ready to book a meeting with you. So this would be, something like a download for, are you retiring in the state of New York in the next 5 years? Here's a checklist of what you need to know. Something that they would give up their email in exchange to get this article or thing from you, right? And so the more niche down you are, the more leads you're going to get, because you can be highly specific to your audience. So let's just take a couple look at what those secondary calls to action could be. Here's one from somebody who helps people retiring from the military and they're, going into civilian life. So they're hyper specific about that, and they're going to get a download or a guide in exchange for their email. Here's another one. This gentleman actually works with people who've worked on the railroad their whole life. He's gotten super specific in that niche, and he has tons of resources for taking your pension from the railroad, when's the best time to make certain moves, all kinds of things for his audience. And it makes it really easy for them to self-qualify whether they're a good fit to work with him or not, right? The last thing I just want to say about calls to action is look at the difference between the one on the left and the one on the right. If you can share a visual with your guide, your ebook, your download, you're going to typically get more conversions, especially if you pair it with what will they get if they download it. So just saying the title's not enough, right? We want to tell them what they're going to learn, what they're going to find out, how it's going to benefit them in some way. That is the best way to actually, get people to fill it out. Okay. So let's move on. I'm trying to make sure we get through all of these good sections to different types of thought leadership and how it can help people find you online. And I don't know, Susan, if you're looking at the questions, if there was anything else about webinars or events that we should answer before we move on, just let me know.
Yep, I've been answering them as we go. Nothing that I think is general for the whole audience. I think you're good.
Okay, great. So one of the things, webinars is just a version of thought leadership, right? You're taking something and sharing it with other people. But there's other ways that you can do this as well that, are quicker and maybe get you even more promotion because everyone can see them a lot quicker than having to sign up for a webinar. And one of those is through search engine optimization. So what we mean by that is somebody goes to Google and they search a super specific question. Like in this example, can capital gains push me into a higher tax bracket? And the results that they get could potentially help them make them find your website because you've answered the question in a really great way. So you can see here's the question. The second answer here on this page is from Corey Hill Advisors, which is a firm we work with. And they have a great blog post that answers this question in length for their readers. What's great about this is that this is a great way to generate leads that are really qualified, right? If somebody's asking this question and you work with a lot of clients through this type of planning, you know that they're going to be a good quality lead for you. So these are called long tail keywords, which gets really technical, but it basically just means a super specific question. It's not just financial planning for physicians, right? It's a super specific question for a group of people. So this is really great if you want to generate leads through search engine optimization, answering the kinds of questions that the leads that you want to get or the clients you want to work with are going to want to discuss with you. Another way that you can, really demonstrate your thought leadership and generate leads through your thought leadership is through something called zero-click content. So sort of if we think about zero-click content, what we're talking about is content that someone can absorb through social media, through an email, where they don't need to click off the page to get the crux of the information, right? So if we think about the old way that most people would share social media posts, it would be something like this, right? They would say, here's an article we wrote about a topic, click over to read it. And then you have to click and absorb the information. What we're starting to see a lot of the social media platforms prioritize is this new way, which is a Twitter thread or a LinkedIn post that uses up all the characters, where you're giving away the main points, the crux of the information right up front without somebody needing to click off to read it. And this really helps, again, anybody who sees your name or your business in their feed, it's going to help them start to associate all those great giveaways and points that you've made that are helping educate them without them needing to click to your blog or website to see it, which, let's be honest, most people don't do as much. So this is a really great strategy, again, from a promotional standpoint of trying to associate your business with a certain type of education or planning or service offering, because you can dive deep into the nitty gritty right there in a standalone post.
And I have to just, this also would work for sharing the webinar. So let's say you did a webinar and then you wanted to share it on social, having a nice long, a great caption that summarizes the key points of the webinar in the caption is a fantastic way to reutilize that content. But I don't know about everybody on the webinar, but every time I go to post on social, I have this like stage fright of writing the caption. And I feel all this pressure to come up with something that's super clever. And I use Sam as my benchmark and I'll never be as good. And I'm guessing I'm not alone. And FMG is rolling out something that I think is so cool. So I just have to mention it. We've integrated with ChatGPT. And I think sometime by the end of February, we are rolling out a capability that will generate the caption for you after asking some questions about the tone of your voice and some other, do you like emojis? Do you like bullets? And if you upload the script or the transcript of your webinar, it will automatically create a caption for you using a compelling question, bullets, summarizing it, emojis, and then it'll recommend 3 different ones, that you can pick one or you can just, edit from there. But I think that will be game changing.
100%. And one of the things I love about being able to repurpose content in general is that it can be hard to think about what to say. So here's a great example of what this could look like in practice. Let's say you have a webinar or a video you made, like in my example here. Rather than rehash it all out, you see this was 10 biggest website mistakes financial advisors make. And then I just put timestamps of each of what those 10 mistakes were. So somebody could just go to that timestamp and, discover that point, but I listed them all out. So if somebody didn't want to watch the whole video, they're still getting what those 10 mistakes are without having to click. This type of content really works better for getting more engagement. So you can see here, there's something like 92 comments and 5 shares, right? Because there's a lot more to discuss. They don't have to click off the page to go get the meat of the information. And this strategy is really gaining popularity for a good reason in that it works. And other people are going to be a lot more likely to share your content as well when it gives away the meat of the information right there in the post itself. So definitely something to add to your arsenal and try in 2023.
I have one question. It's taking us back a little bit, but it's been asked by more than one person and somebody just asked it again. So I want to make sure I go there. The secondary call to action. How many do you recommend? On how many pages? People mentioned that sometimes those pop-ups can be annoying. I agree. What's your advice as it relates to the secondary calls to action?
Yes, good question. So I think that the thing that I would, and I'll just go back to this slide here, with a secondary call to action, the primary can be like a floater. So this little schedule a call button on the bottom right hand side, right? That's your primary. It can kind of be in the bottom right hand corner, and any page you go on, be there. But the secondary call to action, typically it could be somewhere else on the page. So as they're reading more about the firm, maybe you have a button that talks about who you work with, and you're talking all about how you work with equity-based compensation, people who are get equity-based compensation. And then you say something like, download our free report on the 5 things people who receive equity-based compensation need to know in 2023. But that's not following you. It's not a pop-up. It's just on the page that talks about who you work with, right? So you definitely don't need to be annoying about it. I would put it strategically in places where those folks are likely to spend the most time on your page. So the about page of your website, where you can talk a lot more about who the people of your firm are and why you've chosen to work with the group you have, as well as if you have certain blog posts that are your most popular posts, right? That Can Capital Gains Push Me into a Higher Tax Bracket example I showed earlier. He has a link on that page for a secondary call to action to get an ebook he designed to answer that topic. And he gets a lot of downloads right there from that blog. So there's no just one rule. It's more, where are you going to get the most eyeballs on your particular website, and how can you capitalize on those locations? Did that answer the question good enough? Okay, so we could not talk about 2023 without talking about Google reviews, because the SEC rule went officially into effect here just in November, the new marketing rule. And this is something that is just going to become more and more prominent. Now, before we even talk about this, I know so many of you are going to blow up the chat in the Q&A box and say, we're not allowed to do this chat from compliance. So always check with your home office first. But as this rule went into effect in November, and home offices are continuing to work through the way that they're handling it internally, this is going to become more and more prominent. And from a consumer standpoint, right, it's going to become more prominent because why? We all want to read reviews about anything we purchase or any service we buy. I mean, I don't know about you ladies. If I'm booking a hotel room, I want to read the reviews before I do that. And it's only one night, maybe a few $100s. Before you transfer all your assets over to a financial advisor, you want to know about people who've worked with them objectively, right? So these Google reviews are going to become more and more important. And the other reasons they matter, number one, Google reviews and ratings really play a part in how high your site ranks from an SEO perspective. So for a lead gen, if someone is searching financial advisor Boston, you'll notice that some of the sites that come up first in that little map pack are ones that have Google reviews, because Google's saying, oh, this is a legitimate business that we can verify. So know that about reviews. They definitely directly impact your SEO. And they do matter, because 93% of online experiences begin with a search engine, and leads from search engines have about a 14.6% close rate, according to some different research we've found. I just put a little message in here I got from an advisor not that long ago. He was shocked. He had a prospect book a meeting through his website and Calendly, and that person found him by Googling him. It ended up being 10 million in assets they transferred over, and he was just blown away. He was like, what you're teaching works. I can't believe it. But until you've had it happen to you, I think it can be hard to understand that people are out there just looking for an advisor this way.
Totally. And every single referral and prospect is coming through your website front door, not your literal front door, but your website. So it's really important.
Yes, absolutely.
I've gotten to read a few of our clients' testimonials on and not to confuse with the marketing testimonials, just to clarify that, on how they use Google reviews. It's incredible, not just to see comments starting to kind of load up from customers that they've had over the years. They're almost asking for them in the same way that they do a referral. But what's really engaging is not just a comment from a customer or client that's super happy with you, but also feedback, negative or positive, as something an advisor says in return, just a simple thank you. Reading those conversations is super engaging as someone who is in search for a financial advisor to support them. So it's pretty fun to read through some of those. So another way to engage.
Absolutely. So somebody just asked the question, where do we direct people to leave a review? Great question. So the first thing you want to make sure you do is, there used to be something called Google My Business. They changed the name to Google Business Profile. Same thing, just different name. So you'll go to that. You can Google Business Profile, and it'll give you the instructions on how to set it up. I also linked at the bottom of this slide here the support document that shows you exactly what to do. So you'll have these slides if you want to follow it. But a few things to note: you really want to first claim your listing and complete it fully. So I suggest having at least 6 photos added to be considered it complete by Google. So, you can have pictures of your office, of your logo, your team, what have you. When you want to start collecting reviews, including a link in your email is a great way to go. When you set this up, you can see in this middle slide here, once you complete your Google Business Profile, they will give you a link that you can send to anyone that takes them directly to the page to leave you a review and a rating. So it's really, really easy to do. You get a direct link you can send out to any of your clients for them to leave you a review. So that is the best way to go about handling that. And again, going to be even more and more important in 2023 as people start Googling advisors and they're seeing reviews for some and not others. It's going to be hugely important. Okay. And then just a couple other things that I wanted to mention in terms of lead gen. This one is a little bit off the beaten path, but I find it works better probably than anything, which is telling stories and making a personal connection goes such a long way in getting people over that last hump, right? So maybe they know the value of what you do in terms of the services that you offer or the guidance you can give, but they're still just nervous about taking the leap of switching advisors or working with an advisor for the first time to begin with. If you can make that personal connection, that helps people bring their guard down and get ready to take the next step. So here's a great example on a website of a firm where they have this page on their about page, and it has "We used to be you," because they're two gentlemen who used to be in the military who now help people who are retiring from the military and going into civilian life. And then they have this click on those handsome mugs to learn more about the men behind redeployment wealth strategies, right? They use humor. They talk in the first person. They make crack jokes at themselves. This helps people let their guard down and build that personal connection. A couple other examples: Drucker Wealth. He tells a story. He has a quick little video on his homepage, and he tells the story about how his dad was an advisor, how it inspired him to become an advisor because he would go into the office with his dad all the time. Now his son is an advisor and they're working together, and it's really this family endeavor. He has old photos of him and his dad throughout the site. It really, really helps, especially because he targets people who, want to work with the next generation as well. So again, just think of ways that you can tell stories in your marketing and in your materials to build that personal connection. Anything that you would talk about, offline in a meeting with a client, can turn into these little online touch points.
Yeah, I think if you only do one thing at the end of this webinar, I hope you'll have a couple of takeaways. But if you only do one thing, go revisit your About Us page, and if it's written in the third person and has list your degrees and schools that you've went to, start again and ask yourself, if somebody asks, why did you get into this business? Answer the question, and that should be your About Us. And if your pictures are all just you in suit and tie or formal attire, show some that, are the real you, in the office on a regular day to day. And just imagine that your prospects are meeting you. This is their first impression. And what would you like them to see?
Yes, I love that. Okay, so more ideas for where to find leads, because I know so many of you are the organic part takes forever. How can I find them tomorrow? So the organic does take a little bit of time, posting to social media, doing the webinars and events, and all of these things that are going to be what I call exponential in nature. They're going to be kind of a slog the first 6 months, but then they really, really gear up as people start to know you as the go-to person for X. In the short term, you might want to find leads a little quicker. So, Yelena, tell us, where are some other ways that people can more quickly find some leads? Oh, you're muted. Sorry.
Can you hear me now? My apologies. You'd think that we've done Zoom a few times and webinars a few times, we'd know how to use it. But so we've definitely dug deeper with advisors into the channels they're using in order to source their leads from. So it's really interesting to dig in here. It's no surprise, right? The client referrals are key. But looking at kind of the full spectrum here, you'll see examples like social media and lists have less utilization and are likely less competitive as a result. We work with growing advisors that are kind of consistently engaging on social media. You already talked about that and kind of qualified how an advisor might go about that. It's a great source of leads. I'll add hosting local events based on specific interests of your prospects is another area that gets a lot of traction. One of our clients, I found it particularly interesting, found a lot of their prospects are really into food and wine. So they decided to run a local event at a vineyard last summer, ended up being absolutely the most successful source of their new customers last year, which was great to hear. Another method that's not commonly tapped, but we hear from time to time from advisors is engaging through your local business, the Chamber of Commerce members, to really lean in on your local community and see how you could service them. It's been incredible to see and continue to see how creative advisors get in terms of sourcing their prospecting opportunities. But as you can see here, there's a ton of opportunity beyond just referrals and kind of some of those standard processing that we see.
I love that. There was also someone I talked to who they said that in this, one of the things that they were doing was with their current clients, they were calling them, especially the people they wanted to get more clients like them, right? So their ideal client. And they were asking them, what are you most looking forward to this year? And then they wrote down what those were, whether it was their daughter's wedding or a trip that they were going to take. And then when the time would come, they would do something about that touch point. So if it was the wedding, maybe they sent a personalized gift, or if it was a vacation, maybe they had a bottle of champagne delivered to the hotel that the client was at. But they created moments and experiences that the clients then wanted to talk about with their friends, so that it was a more proactive way to get their firm talked about, right? So rather than just sort of wait for the person to have a good experience, they create a touch point so that it kind of puts the ball a little bit more in their court. So that's also something you could think about as well. Okay. So the reality is, though, for many of you, and I've seen this question come up, we get some leads, but we don't know which leads are our best leads, which ones to prioritize, and how do we do that? I'm going to pass it over to Yelena here in just 2 more minutes, and she's going to show us an amazing way to determine which leads you should prioritize and then how to send them personalized communications. But I did want to just, qualify that by saying that email is still the number one way that clients want to hear from their advisor about financial recommendations, tips, content. This is coming from our friends over at YCharts. They do this study every couple of years. Email continues to blow out all the other channels out of the water as the number one way. So getting these leads is not enough. You need to nurture them and nurture them in a way that is relevant to them, right? Sending the same mass email to all 400 people on your list is not effective. It needs to be specific to what they care about and want to learn more about. So that drip email marketing, you collect the emails either on your website or from a webinar or wherever you have them. And then over time, send them this valuable, educational, timely content. This is just an example. from FMG through our Do It For Me program. When breaking news happens, like the yield curve inverts, we create a really timely piece of content that then you can send out to both leads and your current clients, so that that timely communication is happening and you're really staying top of mind.
And I think just the combination, you don't have to only send unique content to each prospect. It's a combination. Like this timely email goes to all prospects.
Yes.
But then you want to supplement it ideally with content that is unique and specific to them. Obviously, that will break through, and the combination is what really has the most effectiveness, because you can't send unique content to the one prospect 3 times a week, but dripping on them with some of the timely and just value add content, anything that would be of interest to them, and then supplementing it with content that I think Elena will tell us more about.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm going to just go forward actually to there so that we have time to go through this. So Elena, why don't you tell us a little bit about, I guess now would be a good time to show us that feature and what it looks like.
Sure. I'll actually, instead of talking you through the slide, I will talk through the capability as we look at the demo. But as I'm starting to share my screen, wanted to share that we built the capability around Catchlight based on really 2 questions that advisors continued to think about as they thought about growing their business is, how do I organize my thinking of who do I engage first? And how do I personalize and tune my pitch that's particularly engaging to that person so it really gets the results that I'd like? And so really based on that is where we focused our attention. So I'm going to just confirm that you could see my screen.
And make sure you stick around, because I see lots more questions coming in, which I love, and we are going to answer as many as we can in a little lightning round here in just a few minutes. I don't see your screen just yet.
All right, just confirm you can see it now.
I see myself.
All right, let me try again.
Maybe it's a different box.
Stay with us. It's worth it. Because, of course, the lawnmower has just arrived. Sorry about that. We could probably talk. I mean, I think, is the screen coming up?
Oh, yeah, now I see it.
All right, apologies. So we're looking at Catchlight. And so, as I said, we really tackled.
Sure, if we see it. I see it in the presenter console, but maybe you have to push it to live. Maybe I'm wrong. You guys see it? If you see it, we're good.
I can see both the slides and her screen. I don't know if anybody on the back end can help us with making that bigger. Some people are saying they see it in the chat. Oh, people are saying I can see it both now. So hopefully if you see the slides and the video, you can make the video box bigger and you should be able to see. Okay, people are saying they can see it.
Awesome. So I'll walk us through basically a typical experience of how advisors get started. And I'll keep us coming back to really those 2 value props and how we focused our attention on helping advisors think about growth and figuring out who to focus their attention on first and how to tune their engagement. It's a really simple way to get started. You can share your leads with us through either uploading a list or multiple lists, share through importing through your CRM, or adding a lead at a time. That tends to be more of a maintenance step. We interact very differently depending on how the advisor tends to manage their data, but ultimately we need just a few pieces of information to get started. And that tends to be a name and 1 piece of contact information, be an email, a phone number, a mailing address, whatever advisors are already working with. And so what we then do is we go to real-time research, pulling back up to 2,000 data elements on each and every one of your leads, and really trying to condense that to the biggest and most interesting insights so that you could think about how to organize your list in terms of segmentation and how to filter your list based on who do you want to start your day with? And if I have my 15 minutes to prospect today, what I might think about is I tend to be focused on working with affluent and high net worth folks. And perhaps I'm focusing on a segment, and perhaps I'm also focusing on a specific value proposition. I read an article or new legislation, as Sam had described, with, let's say, new tax law in your state that is particularly compelling to business owners that could be tax advantaged. And so what I'll do is I'll use the capabilities we have here in Catchlight to filter this list down based on all the information we were able to pull back, be it age range, in my case, that may not matter, life event. I'm actually going to focus our attention more on characteristics like business owners, as you heard me say. And while I might filter by other capabilities like financial interests, engagement ideas, occupation, etc., I'll stay there just for the sake of our conversation here. And you'll see that the list has been tuned. And now with my 15 minutes, I need to focus my attention on someone. In my case, you'll see the Catchlight score. You see that this entire list is filtered by the Catchlight score. Let me describe to you what it is. We've spent a pretty significant amount of time researching now over 170,000 successful conversions for paid advice relationships. And what we distill out is the characteristics that make people convert. They're diverse, but there's a lot of similarity, as you can imagine, of what makes people find the partner in the financial advisor. And so what we do then is apply that information based to the advisor's own lead list in form of a score. The more similar the characteristics of that individual are to those that tend to buy financial advice, which, as you can imagine, also evolves over time. We've had a lot of volatility in the market. We've had the pandemic. A lot of other things are going on, but the higher the score, the more similar they are today to the characteristics of people that buy advice. In my case, Justin is at the top of the list. I also see Kenneth. I see John. Those are probably the three that I might focus my attention on with the time I have. And so what I'll then do is start to really tackle the question of how do I tune and personalize that engagement based on characteristics specifically unique to, in my case, Justin. By the way, I should have said, and I will say now, that we're looking at test environment data. We're not sharing anything that we shouldn't be. So we can all feel comfortable here, but Justin, my fictitious lead here, we've been able to pull back just on a few pieces of information. A lot of public record and first party disclosed data, like his age, his profession, information about his household, everything from liquid investable assets to the income range to spending behavior. We are projecting a number of other characteristics, leveraging insights and our AI. You see matching segments.
I am getting some questions on how. How are you able to do that? How are you able to add all that info in? I know it's AI driven, but maybe just speak to how you're able to augment just from a name and an email.
That's a great question. So we are all very familiar with leveraging search engines to find more information, public record information. And I will highlight, we really focus on two types of information. One is public record, something that is already public about you. And two, so house value is a good example of that. You'll see various life events like marriage, divorce, things that are public record. And anything that's first party disclosed. For example, I might be signing up for a membership and I keep that box that asks us all if we're comfortable in disclosing information with affiliates. And so that data is parked in a variety of different databases. We leverage and lean in to pull that data back, not to get anyone to feel uncomfortable, but specifically get to those distilled insights that will motivate and drive engagement that feels relevant and engaging. So not to be redundant with my statement here, but this profile in its on its own really underpins this capability here. I'll pause before I start to describe it. Susan, other questions from the group of attendees we have here?
I'm selfishly excited for you to talk about how to engage with them, leveraging really targeted content.
And that's right. Good segue for us to really look at this, how this data drives that. So we have a collection of engagement ideas, but really what the crux of the presentation is for today and the partnership that we've developed with FMG is to take their rich library of content and really equip the advisor to, at the clicks notice, to be able to engage with Justin here on things that matter to him. So you'll see what we've done is we leverage the profile and the insights that we've pulled back and wrapped here and tied it into the content that exists in FMG's library already to enable advisors to go faster and more personalized and therefore hopefully more effective. You'll see that we've pulled back 3 pieces of content specifically engaging for Justin, some explainability for those that wonder why should this be engaging for Justin. And you'll see a headline, a short description. And for those of you that have an FMG account, you'll be able to click and proceed right into your FMG experience and deep dive right into that particular piece of content. It's been interesting to hear how advisors that are mutual customers use it today. Some are literally leveraging this to send it out to Justin in particular. And others, depending on the piece of content, might have it as their background as they're picking up the phone and making a call. So really creative ways to even use the content that you have out of this library. And so again, going back to Catchlight solving the 2 questions, who do you prioritize your engagement on? How do you tune and filter that list for the given day, for the given time frame? And how do you engage in a personalized way and lift all of that insight and education that Samantha and Susan have been sharing across the hour that we've had?
And I think what's key is, I think we'll all agree, and I'm sure I'm getting nods from those on the webinar, it's all great to have information, but for most advisors and even for me, if we don't make it easy to act on the information, there tends to be a big disconnect. Like, oh, that's great, and then we're off to the next thing. So what's super, I think, powerful with the Catchlight and FMG integration is, great, you've uploaded your prospect list, it's augmented, it's prioritized, but you can push a button and know exactly what to send them in an email so that you can very easily nurture and or look at the topics that would be of interest to them in a conversation so that you can execute on the information that you get really easily.
Agreed.
Really cool
And somebody said something like, I would feel uncomfortable reaching out to a lead and sharing all this information I know about them. The idea is, all this information about them, so you're able to share content that they're going to be really enticed to read and open. Not that.
Yeah, I think a lot of strategies we've seen advisors use is, now I know that this particular lead is, say, a medical professional. I work a lot with medical professionals, and specifically that also own their business. And I can qualify that I serve medical professionals that own their business that are tackling these questions. Does that sound familiar? Is there a way for me to help? And so as opposed to kind of reaching out to your point and leveraging that information differently.
Oh, real quick, because I know we're almost out of time, I just wanted to mention for anybody who is coming away from this, maybe feeling a little bit overwhelmed, there's so much you want to institute, but you're not sure where to start. That is why we are here at FMG. We created the Do It For Me marketing program, where we have a custom marketing plan each month that our team executes for you. And if you'd like to learn more about that, about our partnership with Catchlight, about how all of this works together, there is the email, or you can certainly go to fmgsuite.com and learn more there. But ladies, Susan, any other parting words? Or I don't know if we have time for questions. So
I think I've tried to keep up with the questions really well. So sorry if my eyes weren't always straight into the camera, but no, I thought that, we could talk for hours more. And I think based on the engagement and the questions, I think advisors would love to have more one-on-one time, but please feel free to follow up with us at marketing@fmgsuite.com with any questions, and we'll get back to you and we'll send a replay. And thank you so much for joining us, Yelena. And I'll turn it over to Scott, who's going to wrap it up.
And thank you very much, Susan. And as we mentioned, that is all the time we have for today. We want to thank everybody for joining us. Hope that the event was useful for you. Thanks again to all of our speakers, as well as FMG for support of today's event. As mentioned before, there are some additional assets on the console that you can download and read when you get a chance. If you missed any part of this presentation, remember it'll be archived shortly at ThinkAdvisor, so you can refer someone else to it or view it again yourself. And we always encourage you to view other upcoming and on-demand presentations on that site. Thank you very much again, and have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.